They say your purpose finds you in the place of your greatest pain. I never believed that until I stood on a stage in Johannesburg, South Africa, looking out at 3,000 faces and realized that everything I had survived had been preparation for this single moment. The conference was titled Breaking Generational Cycles Through Intentional Living, and I had been invited as the keynote speaker, me, the girl who grew up in orphanages, the girl accused of fraud, the girl whose husband left because she was too strong, the girl who almost swallowed a handful of sleeping pills. As I stood backstage, waiting for my introduction, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Folake, my oldest daughter. Mom, you're going to change lives today. I know it. Go break every chain, just like Grandma said you would. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. When I opened them, I heard my name being called. I walked onto that stage, and the spotlight hit me like a physical force. For a moment, I was transported back to that small room in Mushin, where my father used to lift me up and tell me I would be greater than that street. Good morning, I began, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. My name is Shade Adekunle, and I need to tell you something before I begin. I am not here because I have all the answers. I am here because I have survived all the questions. The room went completely silent. I was born the day my mother died. They say she held on just long enough to hear me cry, and then she whispered 7 words. This one will break every chain. For most of my life, I thought she was wrong, because everywhere I went, I collected chains instead of breaking them. The chain of poverty, the chain of rejection, the chain of accusation, the chain of abandonment. I paused, letting the words settle. But what I didn't understand then, what took me decades to learn, is that sometimes you have to carry chains before you can break them, not just for yourself, but for everyone coming behind you. For the next hour, I shared my story, all of it. The orphanages where I learned that silence was safer than speech. The foster homes where I learned that charity without love feels like slavery. The accusation that almost destroyed my future. The marriage that collapsed under the weight of insecurity. The night I stood in my bathroom holding pills, ready to give up. And the moment my 4-year-old daughter called me her hero and saved my life without knowing it. I told them about Blessing, the 15-year-old I defended, about Mrs. Bakare, who apologized too late but taught me that some people only deserve indifference, about donating my kidney to the woman who tried to destroy me, about learning that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the highest form of power. When I finished, the room was silent, and then it erupted. A standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. People were crying, strangers were embracing, and I stood there, overwhelmed, realizing that my pain had just become someone else's permission to keep fighting. Afterward, dozens of people came to me. Your story gave me hope. I thought I was alone. You showed me that survival is possible. One young woman, no older than 25, grabbed my hands. I'm an orphan too, she whispered, and I've been thinking about giving up, but after hearing you, I think I'll keep fighting. I pulled her into a hug. Keep fighting, I whispered back. Your story isn't over yet. That evening, I video called my children. Tunde from Canada, Folake from her university dorm, Temi from home with Daniel. How did it go, Mom? Folake asked. It went well, I said, smiling. We're so proud of you, Tunde said. I'm proud of all of you, I replied, because they represented something I never had growing up. Stability, love, hope. They were living proof that cycles can be broken, that pain doesn't have to be inherited, that redemption is real. When I returned to Nigeria, something had shifted. The conference had been live streamed and my story had gone viral. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Media requests, speaking invitations, messages from people all over the world sharing how my story had impacted them. But the moment that mattered most came 2 weeks after I returned. I received a call from the director of the orphanage where I had spent 3 years as a child. The same place where I learned that crying too loudly got you punished. The same place where I learned to be invisible. Mrs. Okonkwo, she said, "We would be honored if you would come speak to our children." I almost said no. The thought of going back to that place, of facing those memories, was overwhelming. But then I remembered something Mrs. Adeyemi, my beloved teacher, had told me years ago. God sometimes allows storms to raise warriors, and I realized that my storm had raised me for this exact purpose. The day I visited, the children were lined up to greet me. The director introduced me as one of our success stories. But when I looked at those children, I didn't see success. I saw myself, small, scared, hoping someone would see them. So instead of giving the prepared speech, I knelt down, got on their level. "I know what you're feeling right now," I said quietly. "I know what it's like to wonder if anyone cares. I know what it's like to feel invisible." They stared at me with wide eyes. "But I need you to know something very important." I looked at each one of them. "You are not invisible, you are not forgotten, and you are not a mistake." Tears streamed down my face. "You are chosen. Do you hear me? You are chosen." Several children started crying. "Your beginning doesn't determine your ending." I continued. "Your pain doesn't define your purpose, and your past doesn't limit your future." I stood up and raised my voice. "Some of you will become doctors, some will become teachers, some will become engineers, some will become lawyers like me." I smiled through my tears. "But all of you will become testimonies that pain is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning of your purpose." After the talk, a little girl approached me. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. "Auntie," she said quietly, "is it true that we're chosen?" I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "What's your name?" "Chiamaka." "Chiamaka, let me tell you something. When I was your age, I lived here too, in this very building. And every night, I used to pray that someone would come and tell me I mattered." I took her small hands in mine. "No one ever did. So I'm telling you now what I wish someone had told me then. You matter, Chiamaka. Not because of who your parents are, not because of where you come from, but because you exist, and existence itself is proof of purpose." She hugged me tightly, and I felt something break open inside my chest. This was it. This was why I survived. Not for wealth, not for fame, but for moments like this. To stand in the gap for children who couldn't stand for themselves. To give voice to the voiceless. To be the person I needed when I was 7 years old and invisible. Before I left, I made an announcement that shocked everyone, including myself. "I'm establishing a foundation," I said. "The Adekunle Foundation. For every orphan girl in Nigeria who dreams of becoming a lawyer." The room erupted in applause. "We will provide full scholarships for secondary school, university, and law school. We will provide mentorship, housing, and emotional support. Because I refuse to let another girl believe she's too broken to build a future." That foundation launched 6 months later. The first year, we sponsored 12 girls. Today, 5 years later, we sponsor over 100. 3 have already graduated from law school. 2 are currently practicing. 1 just won her first major case defending a domestic worker falsely accused of theft. When I heard about her victory, I cried because the cycle had truly been broken, not just for me, but for everyone coming behind me. My practice at Adekunle and Associates continued expanding. We opened offices in Ghana and Kenya. My daughter Folake joined the firm after passing her bar exams with distinction. Watching her argue her first case in court was one of the proudest moments of my life. My second daughter, Temi, is in her final year of medical school, specializing in pediatrics. I want to help children who have nobody, she told me, just like her mother once was. My son, Tunde, is now a senior structural engineer in Canada. Last year, he designed a low-cost housing project specifically for orphaned youth transitioning to adulthood. I learned from the best, he said when I asked him why. Daniel and I never remarried, but we built something better, a friendship based on mutual respect and shared purpose, raising our children. He completed 2 years of therapy and started a small but successful consulting business. More importantly, he became the father our children deserved, present, supportive, humble enough to admit his mistakes. Mrs. Okonkwo, fully recovered from the transplant, transformed in ways I never imagined possible. She volunteers at an orphanage 3 times a week. She tells the children there, "You are not forgotten, you are chosen." When I asked her why she does it, she said, "Because Shade taught me something I'll never forget. That grace isn't just receiving what you don't deserve, it's giving it to others who don't deserve it either." Last year, on the 10th anniversary of the kidney transplant, she did something that left me speechless. She organized a surprise event, gathered all my children, my friends, my colleagues, and stood in front of everyone to make a speech. "I need to confess something publicly," she began, her voice shaking. "I spent years trying to destroy the woman who saved my life. I called her worthless. I poisoned her marriage. I made her feel unwanted in her own home." Tears streamed down her face. "And when I was dying, when my own blood couldn't save me, she gave me her kidney. Not because I deserved it, but because she understood something I'm still learning." She looked directly at me. That love isn't about what someone deserves. It's about who you choose to become. She walked over and took my hands. "Shade, you are the daughter I should have celebrated from the beginning. Thank you for teaching me what grace looks like." I couldn't speak. I just held her while we both cried. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. Not because life had become easy, but because I had finally stopped carrying the weight of other people's opinions. Mrs. Adeyemi, my beloved teacher, who paid for my exam fees and believed in me when no one else did, passed away 5 years ago. But before she died, I got to tell her something important. I sat beside her hospital bed, holding her frail hand. "You saved my life," I told her. She smiled weakly. "No, Shade, God saved your life. I was just honored to be his instrument." "No," I insisted. "You saw me when I was invisible. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You told me that God raises warriors in storms. Do you remember?" She nodded. "I remember. I didn't understand what you meant back then," I said, tears streaming down my face. "But I understand now. You were telling me that my pain had purpose, that my struggle was preparation, that my survival wasn't accidental." I squeezed her hand gently. "Mrs. Adeyemi, because of you, I became a lawyer. Because of you, I learned to fight for the voiceless. Because of you, I established a foundation that's changing lives. You didn't just save one girl. You saved hundreds through me." She cried then, real beautiful tears. "Then my life meant something," she whispered. Your life meant everything, I replied. At her funeral, I established the Adeyemi Scholarship Fund for orphaned girls pursuing higher education. So far, we've sponsored 43 girls, 43 futures changed, 43 cycles broken, 43 warriors being raised in storms. Today, I am 52 years old. Adekunle and Associates Legal Consultancy has offices in 6 countries. We've won some of the most significant human rights cases in West African legal history. But the achievement I'm most proud of isn't on any resume. It's the women, the hundreds of women who have reached out to tell me that my story gave them permission to keep fighting. The orphans who now believe they're chosen instead of cursed. The abuse survivors who learned that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. The single mothers who discovered that being strong doesn't disqualify you from being loved. Last month, I received a letter that brought me to my knees. It was from Blessing, the 15-year-old girl I defended years ago. She's 28 now. She just graduated from law school, top of her class. She wrote, "Mrs. Okonkwo, you told me once that I wasn't defined by what people accused me of. You taught me that survival without purpose is incomplete. I want you to know that I just took a job with a legal aid organization. I'm going to defend children just like you defended me. The cycle continues, but this time it's a cycle of redemption." I cried reading that letter because that's when I truly understood what my mother meant when she whispered those 7 words before dying. This one will break every chain. She wasn't talking about just my chains. She was talking about generational chains, cycles of poverty, cycles of abuse, cycles of hopelessness, and she was right. That night, after reading Blessing's letter, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I prayed. Not a desperate prayer, not a begging prayer, but a prayer of gratitude. God, I don't understand why you allowed everything that happened to me. I don't understand the pain, the loss, the rejection, but I see now what my mother meant. I see why you allowed storms to raise me, because you weren't just preparing me to survive, you were preparing me to save others from drowning in the same waters that almost killed me. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years lifting off my shoulders. You never wasted my pain. You converted it into purpose. And for that, I am grateful. I am not a victim. I am not just a survivor. I am a weapon you sharpened in the fire. Use me for your glory. Amen. 2 weeks ago, I returned to the orphanage where I spent 3 years as a child. But this time, I came with a construction crew. "What's happening?" the director asked, confused. I smiled. "We're building a library, the Adekunle Memorial Library, named after my father, who told me I would build things greater than furniture." I looked at the children watching from the windows. Every child here will have access to books, to knowledge, to dreams, because I refuse to let another child believe that their beginning determines their ending. The library opened 3 months later. It has over 5,000 books, computers, study rooms, and a large plaque at the entrance that reads, "Your pain has purpose. Your struggle has meaning. You are not forgotten. You are chosen." If you're reading this feeling forgotten, rejected, or broken, I need you to stop right now and listen carefully. Your story is not over because pain appeared early. Your value is not determined by who abandoned you. Your future is not limited by your past. I was born the day my mother died. I grew up in homes where I was never truly wanted. I was accused of crimes I didn't commit. I was abandoned by the man I loved. I almost ended my life because the pain felt too heavy to carry. but today I am living proof that your beginning does not determine your ending. Some of you are reading this from orphanages, some from foster homes, some from broken marriages, some from hospital beds, some from places so dark you can't even see a way out. But I need you to know something. God sometimes allows storms to raise warriors. And you, my dear friend, you are not drowning. You are being trained not for comfort, but for conquest. Not for ease, but for impact. Not for mediocrity, but for miracles. I was never chosen by life. I was chosen by God. Through poverty, through pain, through rejection, through survival. And maybe, just maybe, He's doing the exact same thing for you right now. So don't give up. Don't quit. Don't believe the lie that you are cursed. Because I am proof that what looks like a curse can actually be the very thing God uses to raise a champion. Your mother may not be here. Your father may have left. Your marriage may have failed. Your bank account may be empty. But your story is not over. It's just beginning. And 20 years from now, someone is going to need to hear how you survived. So survive, not just for yourself, but for them. Keep fighting, keep believing, keep standing. Because your breakthrough is coming. And when it does, it's going to be worth every single tear. I promise you. Not because life told me so, but because I lived it. And if I can break every chain, so can you. This is Shade Adekunle, the girl who was born into death but chose to live into purpose. The girl everyone called cursed, but God called chosen. And I'm telling you from the other side of the storm, your pain is not the end of your story. It's just the beginning of your purpose. Now go and break every chain.
If this story touched you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may be fighting a battle you cannot see. Because sometimes, one story, one message, one moment of hope is all someone needs to keep going.